We're really happy that to see everybody out here. We will introduce the legislators as they speak. But I also want to recognize that we have judge executives and mayors in the house, as well as other grad board members. And we really want to thank you for coming. And we want to thank everybody for coming. And I personally want to thank our Ohio County delegation because we're pretty strong today. They traveled back. Yes. Tell you a couple housekeeping things. One, please silence your cell phones. I was reminded of it just a second ago. Also, to you guys, if you answer a question, be sure to speak straight into your mics because it's live stream.
Nothing but the truth.
There you go. There you go. And would you join me in a pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've invited other groups this time that we normally have left out, but we want to make sure that we've invited the local colleges, universities, high schools. And if any of you are here, we sure welcome you. And anyone from the Owensboro Chamber who had to cancel their forum this morning, we want you to know you're welcome. You'll find on the front table here note cards. If any of you want to write down a question, you can do so. And I'm sure they'll field questions as well. If you fill it out, a grad staff member will pick it up from you. And also, there's surveys where you're sitting. Be sure to fill those out so we'll know how we're doing. And because we're going to do more, not only in the future, but we're going to do another one this year. What's that date, Jatan?
21st of March.
21st of March, we're doing another one right here. And our challenge is every one of you come back and bring somebody with you. I want to make, as I start introducing our legislators, I want to give you C.B. Embry, Senator C.B. Embry, his regrets. He is ill, but he's getting much better. He was spent several days in the hospital. He was diagnosed with severe high blood pressure issues and atrial fibrillation. So, but under medication, he's getting better. And he was not able to travel down here. He's at his home in Frankfurt, resting, and plans to be back to work Monday. In no particular order, I'm going to introduce you guys, and but here's the way to go. To start off with is Senator Matt Caslin, District 8. Got to know Senator Caslin really well when he was running for state representative. We really enjoyed his company. Everywhere we turned, he was there. So got to know him well. He represented us well as when he represented our district. Now he's moved on to senator here, and we're still very proud of him. And he's still probably the first one in most of our phone books that we call first on issues anyway. So without further ado, Senator Caslin, come on up.
Okay. All right. Well, good morning. Glad that everybody come out. I know the sun is shining. It's going to be 50-something degrees and it's not raining, so that's a great thing. You all can tell that I'm dressed, just itching to go to the farm here in just a little bit. So we appreciate everyone coming out. It's been kind of a unique session this year. It's been kind of off to a slow start. There's still lots of good things that are happening. Of course, we know it's a budget year, and that each respected chamber at this time is kind of in the budget bunkers going through and working on different budgets and, you know, making sure that we meet all the obligations and the needs that we have here in the Commonwealth. So in the Senate, I do serve on A&R, have been in lots of those meetings and looking forward to what the House passes and doing our part in the Senate to continue to meet those obligations. So I've got a few bills this session. I'm just going to kind of brief them real quick. And the last one, I'll probably spend just a few more minutes talking about. So Senate Bill 103 was a particular bill kind of aimed towards the agriculture community to take some of the exemptions for some of our plumbing building codes from 10 acres to 5 acres, especially in our urban areas. You're starting to see smaller farms, organic type farms and things, building greenhouses and stuff like that. And so this gives them the opportunity to go out there and have the same advantages that your larger production agriculturists have to build buildings on. That passed out of the Senate, is at the House now. So we're waiting to see what happens in the Agriculture Committee there. One particular bill at this time that I filed last week that you all might have seen is Senate Bill 173. And this is a bill that I think is going to be transformational for employers across the Commonwealth of Kentucky and for individuals and employees with substance abuse disorder. How many people in the crowd know somebody, a family member, maybe yourself, maybe a coworker that has lost their job here recently because of substance abuse disorder? Normally what happens? You see that person take a downward spiral in life. And you know, this is something that we're faced with. And I don't believe any of those individuals woke up one morning and said, I want to be addicted to drugs. I want this to cost me my job. I want this to cost me my family. And so this particular bill here, what it does is it gives an employer the opportunity in their employee handbooks and their human resource policies regulated by the cabinet to be able to offer a substance abuse disorder training that goes ahead and allows these individuals to go through drug rehabilitation. They get to keep their job if it's the employer's will. You know, we all know that person that just shows up on time every day, that works hard, and that is a super good person that stumped their toe in life. And, you know, I can tell you as an employer, the last thing I ever want to do is have to let someone go for that. You know, I want to help them seek help, and I want to see them get past that hurdle. And so what this bill does is it gives the employer coverage to be able to take that chance on an employee. And I hope this is a model that we look at going forward that's going to continue. With a 3.9% unemployment rate that we have here in Kentucky, you know, we're at the point right now to where filling positions is really tough. And I think the employees that are employed now, we want to do everything we can to pour into them to make them a better person. And, you know, a lot of times when someone is at this point in their life, you know, this is an opportunity for us. You know, you can't beat drugs without changing your life, without changing your heart. And I think this gives us the opportunity to show them what Jesus Christ looks like and to be able to pour into them, to see them be able to save their family, save their position, and turn their life around. So I encourage everyone, if you've seen it, read it. We look forward to getting it moving in the Senate and hopefully down to the House here in the next couple of weeks. So thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you, Senator Caslen. You know, that's great news. I can't think of anything more important to our society as a whole is what you mentioned there. And I'm really glad to hear that there's some progress being made. Next, I'm going to introduce Senator Robbie Mills. I haven't known him that long, but he's a very pleasant person. I know he's working. I know Suzanne says he's a good guy, and he's working very hard for us in the Senate, and he's accessible to us. I visited him last week. Even though he doesn't represent my county, he talked to me anyway, and yes, you did. I forget that you don't. But anyway, I was really proud to meet him, and he's working hard for the people of Kentucky and for his district. Senator Mills.
Thank you, Judge. I think we're all kind of working on the same page. I hope we are. And if anybody in this room ever comes to Frankfort and needs a place to plop down, you can always try to find something in my office or my suite or my conference room. You're more than welcome to come in and talk about the few issues that we're dealing with. But Senator Castleton is right. This is kind of a unique situation this year in session. It seems like there's kind of a slowdown that is, I would almost say, somewhat intentional, to be honest with you, and that's not always a bad thing, to slow down legislation and make sure what we're passing is needed, what we're passing means something, and I believe that's what you're seeing in the session today, this year. This week and starting in next week really is kind of the meat of the session when the budget is starting to get talked about. The budget's over in the House, and we probably are expecting to receive the budget in the next 2 to 3 weeks from the House. Truthfully, the House does a lot of the hard work, dotting I's and crossing T's and adding up numbers. And when it comes to the Senate, it's more of a theoretical, political type decisions that we make on the budget. But everything's going to be happening pretty quick here in the next 27, 26 days in the session. But let me just highlight just a few things. Of course, you know, the House sent us a nice little bill, House Bill 136 yesterday, which is the medical marijuana bill. And there were substantial changes made on that bill. I haven't even read the changes yet, and that's one of my things I'm going to be working on this weekend, is just reading where that bill was at and where it's come to this point. It passed with 65 votes in the House, and we'll be dealing with that over the next couple of weeks in the Senate. But no doubt that will be a prickly issue, and I can already hear my emails clicking away, so we'll see how that goes. But a couple other things in your program, if you've got this in front of you, I believe they're listed here. Run down the Senate bills, because I think everybody else behind me are House members. Senate Bill 1 is the Federal Cooperation Act. This just basically says that we're encouraging local law enforcement to cooperate with federal law enforcement when it comes to any kind of crimes that may be where you can coordinate together. A lot of folks are calling this a sanctuary city bill, and there is some truth to that, even though sanctuary cities does not land in that bill, is not written in that bill at all. Senate Bill 2 is a bill that I'm sponsoring that's getting, it just depends on what day of the session it is, but Thursday I had a 2-hour committee hearing on this, and it passed 11-7 out of the House committee. This simply requires a photo ID to vote when you go vote at the polls. To most people in my district, this is common sense, and this is kind of becoming another political issue as well. I expect this to pass. It may have a court challenge, but we have been working really, really hard to tighten this down, and may very well be the best photo ID bill in the nation by the time we're finished with it. A couple more things. Senate Bill 8 is armed SROs. I think that, once again, is kind of common sense in our area, that if we're going to have policemen guarding our campuses and schools, that they should have a gun, and they shouldn't have to throw rocks or do whatever to chase down criminals. They need to be well armed. So that actually was signed into law yesterday by the governor, and we're very pleased with that. And then finally, one bill that I think is going to make substantial fiscal savings and a big difference in our budget coming forward is Senate Bill 50, which is the Pharmacy Benefit Managers Bill. This is likely to save about $200 to $250 million a budget for the state dealing with Medicaid reimbursements for prescriptions. There's a substantial amount of work by Senator Wise on this bill. Many of our rural healthcare facilities operate on what's called a 340B waiver, where they get federal funds that flow through their healthcare facilities that keep our hospitals and clinics open. Also, in my district, I have an AIDS clinic that operates substantially off of this 340B waiver. So Senate Bill 50 retained that 340B waiver and holds them harmless. So that is really good news for rural health. Other than that, we've got the normal issues that many of the local government officials that are here today are interested in with pensions, CERS separation, how quasi-governmental organizations are handled, how their pensions are going to be handled. And I do probably believe that we're going to see a slight tweak. Representative Miles and the others following may differ with me, but I do think we may see a slight tweak in TRS retirement for new teachers coming in. And then also Henderson, Hopkinsville, and several others, about 30 cities in the Commonwealth that cannot charge, have an optional restaurant tax. And we're hoping that comes up to give some flexibility to our local governments as well. So those are just a few issues that we're dealing with. I serve on the budget committee as well. I'm in charge of local government. We were given a big binder day before yesterday of things we have to work through in the next couple of weeks. And I'm looking forward to the process. This is my first year to kind of be on A&R and kind of have some insight into the Senate budget, but it's a pleasure to serve you. One thing before I sit down, I drove Highway 60 and did a quick video on Facebook about the Spotsville Bridge. I don't know if many of you drive back and forth on that at all, but we're excited over the next couple of years. We're going to have that bridge replaced. It's probably, before it's all said and done, it's probably going to be about a $40 million project, and hopefully nobody hits mirrors going over it when it's done in the future. But it's a privilege to serve you, and look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Next, I'm going to introduce to you Representative Jim Gooch. He's, I'm thinking, maybe the senior member of the group. I'm not saying he's old. Okay. He's been in the House for a while. Wisdom, that's the word Suzanne said. But anyway, he's always been accessible. He served his district very well, and the district knows that because they've sent him back under different flags. Anyway, but I've already, I'm not trying to be funny, I guess, but it's the best way I know to introduce these folks. But I've known Representative Gooch for a long time, and like I said, I think he does a great job. And let's hear what he has to say. See if he can live up to this introduction.
Thank you, Judge. It's great to be here, and it's great to see such a big crowd. I think we may have to have another venue, or Jatan will want to build on. But
Only got 2 months left to go.
well, he only has 2 months left to do it. That's exactly right. Now, let me say that Gratz means so much to me. I served as mayor almost 40 years ago, and I can tell you that the help that they provided to local governments, especially me as a 30-year-old mayor of a little town, it was really, really very important. And of course, my dad served 10 years on the grad board, and I served as for 20 years as the legislative person from the House. And so it's great to be back with you, and have a lot of really good friends here, and it's good to see you again. Glad to have my wife Alta with me today. She came with me. I asked her last night if she wanted to come, and she said, "What time we have to leave?" And I said, 9 o'clock. And of course, it starts at 9:30, and we live in Providence. So this morning I had to let her know that, well, probably 8 o'clock that we need to leave. So anyway, but I appreciate that. The session is over a little bit over half over. And so that's probably a good thing. I'm always excited about them starting, but usually by the time they're over, I'm usually excited that they're over. And we've had quite a bit of work, especially this week. We had a lot of bills that passed. A couple of you've probably just heard about. The medical marijuana bill did pass. That was a big issue for Kentucky. I think it's kind of historic. We passed probably one of the toughest medical marijuana laws in the nation. We do not allow, it does not allow smoking. It does not allow public use. And so if you're out and you do have it, you have to have it in like a double container, or it has to have an inner and outer packaging. And so there are a lot of other ways that you can use that. So when you take away the smoking and that sort of thing, we're making sure that it really is for people that need it for medicinal use. And so I think that's something that's in the Senate now. Do not know how it's going to go there, but I was a co-sponsor of that bill. And have been for the last 2 years. So that one was pretty big. Also this week we did another bill. I think they'll be very good. It was House Bill 1. It does do some, you might even call it public assistance reform. One of the biggest things that it does is, so many people tell us that, they would like to have a job or whatever, but if they get a job and their income goes up a little bit, they lose much of their public assistance or medical card and that sort of thing. And this is actually an attempt to allow people to work and, ratchet up the amount of income that you can make and still keep some of the benefits. And I think that's very important. But we do have, most people out there, I think, that are on public assistance don't really want to be on it. They'd much rather have a job or whatever. But we do have 200,000 people in Kentucky between the ages of 18 and 40 something around, right around 40 years old that do not have children and don't have any really condition or something that warrants them to really be on public assistance. And with an unemployment rate of 3.9%, as someone said earlier, there are jobs out there, but we have to transition people and help them find those jobs. And you don't even have to necessarily be working, but you need to be going to school or doing volunteer work or whatever for some of the things that we're doing. So I think that's a good thing. One bill that I have right now that is over in the Senate, it's House Bill 44. And it's kind of a critical infrastructure bill. And for a long time, Kentucky has identified critical infrastructure that needs to be protected. Those are things like water treatment plants, electric generation facilities, railroad yards, railroad tunnels, and some other things, water supplies for cities and that sort of thing. And we are making sure that we're adding RA list pipelines, but we're making sure people understand that doesn't mean oil and gas pipelines. And it's important because, what happens is you have seen people out there in some cases that maybe in an attempt to protest or whatever would go in and actually try to destroy some of the critical infrastructure. They put themselves and the public in danger when they do that. And so this law just increases the penalties if you go in and actually do destruction of critical infrastructures that all of us depend on. I know that some of the opponents have tried to say that we're trying to take away people's First Amendment rights to protest. Well, Kentucky cannot write a law that takes away your First Amendment rights to protest. And so that clearly was not true. But we did work with the people who had concerns with the bill, and I think we addressed almost all of them. And so it passed pretty overwhelmingly in the House, and that bill is now in the Senate, and I expect it to start moving probably next week. So be happy to answer any questions that you may have later, and I look forward to listening to my fellow House members talk about some of the things that they would like to talk about. Thank you so much.
I forgot to thank Senator Mills. He brought up those bills, and that was very important for us to know about it. So we appreciate him doing that. And as always, we appreciate all of your remarks. And I learned something. Representative Gucci's talk. I wasn't aware of some of those efforts, and that's really good things. And that's important to that's important to our society as well as what Senator Caslen talked about. Next, I want to introduce to you Representative Suzanne Miles. I've known her quite a while. She was field rep for Brett Guthrie, Congressman Guthrie, whenever he served part of Ohio County. And during that time, Suzanne was in our midst a lot. And like I said, I forget almost that she doesn't actually have a role in our county anymore, but we call her every time anyway about any concern we have. And she continues to talk to us about it. And I really appreciate it. The first, I've said this before, but the first time I met Representative Miles, she and I sold pies and cakes at a charity benefit in Rosine, Kentucky. And that stands out in my memory. Without further ado, Representative Miles.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. I know the mayor's in the room, and just to kind of get an idea, whenever we're in session, we're basically gone Monday through Friday, and we miss out on a lot of things that take place at home. And condolences to the mayor. He's lost his mother recently, and we were sorry to see that, but she was quite a trooper. I think she was tough, I'm telling you. And then we also, Miss Gooch also had a birthday recently, so we want to wish her a happy birthday. But well, all the veterans, if you're able, stand in the room. So now, since we know where all of you all are, I know you're here for the VSO bill. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes. We appreciate you all coming out for the support of that. That is the tax break for the service organizations, and that is currently filed in the House. It is an appropriation, and so it will go, more than likely, it'll go closer to the time of the budget that you'll start seeing that move quite a bit. So we are watching for that, and I appreciate you all coming out because I'm assuming that you all are here for multiple reasons, but we are very, very happy to see you all in the room today and appreciate your service that you provide for us. House Bill 1 did pass yesterday. That's one of the items that Representative Meade has been working on for quite a while, but this past summer they did an interim committee, and a lot of the things that are in this bill were the recommendations of moving forward. We hear it often at the state and the federal level, the concern of losing benefits to the opportunities for a better life for your families. And it's always a cliff. I mean, it's kind of like if you get a raise or if you get something additional, you might lose your Medicaid card. You might lose your health insurance, things like that. And that's a big concern. So House Bill 1 is very specific in the process of bridging that gap and start working your way to getting to the point where you're self-sufficient without benefits at taxpayers' expense. And so that is the plan with this. It is very humane effort, more than I've ever seen before, on all the details that go along with this. One of the other features is the substance abuse. In the event that substance abuse has become an issue with benefits, you know, we've talked about the drug testing. Nationally, they've seen that drug testing everyone with benefits is not necessarily the most cost-efficient way to do it. And so this bill is very specific. In the event that substance abuse is found to be a problem, or if you're charged with an item under that category, it's mandatory in this bill for you to enroll in treatment. So we are trying to encourage people, if there is a substance abuse issue, that we help you with that problem rather than pull the rug out from underneath you. I think that's one of the most important things we need to tell about House Bill 1, because a lot of people, and it's not an automatic, you do have an appeals process time period, but I think it's kind of a 3-strike. The next question that we have anytime that something like that comes up, well, what about the children? If you take the benefits away from somebody, or if you restrict them in any way, what about the children? Well, this purposely is set up that the funding that follows that child with the benefits could either be designated to another family member or things like that. This bill is it is not a very long bill. If you have an opportunity, go out there and read it so that you kind of understand the benefits of that. We did have multiple amendments that went onto that, and very appreciative of the amendments because there were some adjustments made along the way on that. I think they've got a few different bills that I've got co-sponsored in House Bill 1 is one of them. This coming week, we will be filing House Bill 2. House Bill 2 is a human trafficking bill, and I am the primary co-sponsor on that. I've been working with the Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, on that bill. Very appreciative of the efforts that he has. We filed 183, which is up there. 183 will actually go into House Bill 1. And a lot of that will be education and signage, but it's a little bit tougher on the penalties of the people that are actually what we call modern day slavery. If you're selling a human being in human trafficking, then we plan on you no longer being able to do that, and you no longer being welcome in our state to do that, for that matter. So be on the lookout for House Bill 2. That is the human trafficking bill. We've spent quite a bit of time on that. But we've got some really good partners in that and look forward on that. The road plan, I'll bring that up. The governor's road plan was not friendly to our area as a whole. It was friendly to the 69 bridge, but beyond that, I think he forgot a few things. Is that right, Judge? Okay. So just stay tuned. The road plan will probably come out very shortly after the budget comes out, which will probably be the first part of March, first or second week. The road plan will be soon after that. The road plan will be drastically different than what you saw come from the governor's recommendation. Highway 54 is specific in this area. Highway 56 in Union County, it was a project started, but has never been finished. So that may be some of the avenues that we look at. I know working in Henderson with Watson Lane is one of the items that Representative Mills, that's a very unsafe area. I know the mayor's brought up this week, there was a wreck there. So that was one of the other items. Another thing I want to bring up about, it was mentioned about some local taxing and things like that of opportunities. There was a proposal for a constitutional amendment that was filed yesterday. I don't know the number on that. I am a co-sponsor on that, but that is going to be very specific to start setting up the framework to have a constitutional amendment on the ballot if the voters want more opportunities for locals to decide some of that funding. So this doesn't open the door for locals to be able to go out and tax and raise all kinds of things that they want, but it does set up a framework for us to be constitutionally sound moving forward of a pathway of some opportunities to give a little bit more home rule. So very excited about that item coming out. Senator Merritt has been working on that. He's been working on it for, I guess, about 2 years now. So we're finally to the point where we think we've got some opportunities. One of the doesn't necessarily affect us. It really affects everybody. The census. Do not forget to do the census. Please participate in the census. It is very, very important for each and every man, woman, and child to be counted on that. That is direct money from the federal of your tax dollars coming back to our state. So please keep that in mind. And I've got a list of about 25 more things. I'll wait on those and give Representative Glenn an opportunity to say a few words, and then I'm sure we'll open up for questions. Thank you so much for there is one thing I do want to bring up about this fellow right here. Ohio County travels in packs. You see the pack over here. This past week, this gentleman right here brought a pack of, I think, 8 people to my office. The meeting request was for 2. He was a bonus. But this bill actually brought in children to beg for the gas tax this past week. That was one of the most, I couldn't believe it. They brought children in to ask to raise their gas tax. So little Ruth was from Ohio County, but I'm telling you, they're tough. They're tough. But thank you so much for having us today. Look forward to hearing your questions, and thank each and every one of you all for being here.
Don't forget, folks, write down the questions you want to ask the folks, and ask these representatives and senators, and grad staff will pick them up from you. If you've got one they don't see, you will hold it up so that we can get them up here to Jatan, and he's going to actually read them. Next gentleman I want to introduce, I followed his career, and have been a fan of him for a long time. I've always had a saying that education is second only to salvation and the pursuit of happiness. This gentleman has put his life devoted to that. He's taught for many years, and education's been a high priority. Like I said, he realizes that it's not just the big universities that produce brilliant people. It's also your local and your community colleges, and he's devoted his life to that. And I'm a big fan of his. He also represents his district well in Frankfurt. And without further ado, Representative Dr. Jim Glenn.
That's a good deal. My speaking style is a little different than the rest of these guys. Where's Mayor Watson? Is he still here? There he is, out there. He and I served on the city commission 15 years ago. It's been a while.
You've gotten old in 15 years.
Well, no, I've gotten younger. I have been a state legislator for 12 years, and is DJ Johnson here? Okay, he's in the back. He's the guy who beat me. Let me tell you something, gang. First, I thought when I lost the election, it was a bad thing. Everything that happens to you is not bad. It's actually a blessing sometimes. My wife passed away from cancer. I got a chance to see what bad looks like. And here's what happened when I lost the election. My children came home and they said, Dad, you and Mom saved a lot of money to travel. You're not in office anymore. Why don't you travel? Which is exactly what I did. I continued teaching at community college. I went to China, Hong Kong, Hawaii, San Francisco, Grand Canyon, Las Vegas, Reykjavik, Iceland, Casablanca, Morocco, Sydney, Australia, Rome, Italy, Malta. And I did this all in 24 months while I was out of office. Then I ran for office again and won. But that's another issue. Everything in life that looks bad is not bad. I had a student come to me this week. He left a note on my door. He said, Dr. Glenn, I took Econ 1 and Econ 2 for you. I just want to let you know, I got my Econ degree from Western. Made me feel really good. I went to my doctor and had a physical. There was a young lady standing behind my doctor, and she had a white coat on. I said, ma'am, I know you. She said, yeah, I took 5 classes with you. I said, ma'am, I only teach business. She said, I took all your business classes, then I went to EKU and took biology. I said, when did you become a nurse? She pulled her coat back. It was a medical doctor. See how stupid I am. I'm here to talk to you about the state legislature. I sit on A&R, which writes the state budget. I sit on the banking committee. I sit on the education committee. And education committee is really important to me. My mother's 90 years old, and every one of her children and grandchildren went to a community college. All of us have degrees except for one. University of Illinois, Wisconsin, Cornell, Kentucky, Maryland. My son's working his PhD at Michigan State right now. We actually believe in education. My daughter is now in Florida. That was another place I went when I lost the election. I went to Florida. My daughter's on her 3rd management job with Duke Energy, the largest power company in the United States. She manages all the power from Tampa Bay to the Georgia border. She manages 15 engineers to keep the power on down there. It's a good deal. Education, technology, and growth in population is what's needed to grow any economy, any place in the world. We do well when we invest our money in education, and we are not doing that in this state. It is a crime. I get really emotional about this. We didn't give any of our college, any of our elementary schools books in the last budget cycle. Absolute sin. I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk about religion. It's not a good deal, gang. We have to invest in our children if we are to survive. We have to invest in our children if this community is to survive. It's important. Don't let me, I'm gonna go on. I got a chance to talk to every president in the state for public university. So I sit on the budget committee for post-secondary education. So we got a chance, they come, they bring that chief budget officer, and they discuss the budget, which is really good. I get a chance to see them all. I got a chance to talk to the president of the UK. He said, my problem is this. He said, the students that come to us, after they're here for a while, sometimes we run out of money for mental health. I never thought that as a problem at a college. He said, a lot of students get stressed out. A lot of students get stressed out every place in our society. There's something going on in our society that's stressing people out, which is why people are on drugs and all those opiates and that kind of stuff. It has something to do with our society. We got to find some way to get people to chill down. I'm happy working with all these guys. Don't get me wrong. We have different views. Like House Bill 1, all the Republicans got up here and said they supported it. I voted against it. And this is why I voted against it. Everybody in this society is not glued together right, not mentally sound. And they need physical help. They need housing, they need medical help, they need food. What they're doing is correct. I agree with them getting the people off welfare, or not called welfare, what is it called? Public assistance, who should be at work. But we have to be careful. There are people out there who are just not mentally sound, and they do need help. We cannot ignore them. And that's why I voted against the bill. So if you guys look and say, well, Jim Glenn voted against the bill, you darn skippy I did. My job is to protect those who can't protect themselves. Anyway, I voted on a lot of bills this past term. We have nearly 700. I'm gonna sit down here a second, and you guys can ask me questions. I basically focus on education, medical services. Remember, 90 cents out of every dollar we get in the state of Kentucky of Medicaid comes from the federal government. It don't come from the state of Kentucky. When you're cutting people off Medicaid, here's what you're doing, because people aren't thinking about this. You're destroying the healthcare system in this state. You're closing hospitals. You go to Eastern Kentucky or Western Kentucky and you're in a car accident, you need a doctor locally that can patch you up, stop the bleeding, where they can airlift you back to Louisville or Lexington or Northern Kentucky. You don't do that and you're going to die out on the expressway. A lot of people don't get it. And 90% of the money we get in this state comes from the federal government. You hear what I'm saying? 90%. This year was 93, but it's going to be lowered to 90 next year. We've got to take care of what we're doing. I understand we got to get people who are lazy and get them off the rolls. You shouldn't be funding people, public money with that. I agree with that concept, but you got to be careful and make sure we don't destroy. We're closing our small hospitals in the state. Small towns are without small hospitals. We don't have that problem here in Owensboro. But there are other people say, well, it's not our problem. Yes, it is. If you're driving in West Kentucky, East Kentucky, you get hurt, you got to have somebody that's going to patch you up until you can get to a major medical center. I don't think anybody's thinking about that. And you need a medical network to get that done. I'm going to shut my mouth now and sit down. You guys be good to yourself. Make sure you eat all your vegetables. Take care.
Thank you, Representative Glenn. Next, we're going to bring Jatan up here just as soon as he gets his cards, and he's going to ask you guys some questions. And then we'll see if we've got time, we may get some from the floor.
Thank you, Judge, and it's tough to follow Dr. Glenn. Only thing I can say, that in a couple of months, I may be asking you a list of the travel so I can probably visit the same places.
I didn't get a chance to go to Antarctica because I had a couple of guests in my family. I had to cancel that trip.
Or maybe India too, so.
Forgot you was living in Kentucky last fall.
That's right.
This is a great crowd, great comments and great attendance. I think this is what makes it to be a really democracy that we have. And I think we are so proud that everybody thought the grad has a role to play to keep the conversation going. Before we do the questions, I just want to take a point to talk about the book that you have. as I think was mentioned a couple of times, it does have the information about the legislators, some of the bills they're co-sponsoring, along with that, some of the priorities that we think it is important for the work that we do and for the communities, from aging and community development, transportation, workforce, and everything else that affects GRAD, that we serve the community. I would also like to kind of compliment Jennifer Marks in the back. Looks like the command center down there. She's the one who is responsible for setting everything up, and also Kim and Tom. So I think they're really great to have a great staff, and something that I would ever install. So with that, we're going to start questions. Let's see what else I was going to say. Please take that card for the legislators. Can put in your pocket or something. There's a really easy guide to talk to them, ask them questions. Or if you are there in Frankfurt area, you can also reach out, as Suzanne mentioned, and also visit them as well. We're gonna do some questions that has been written out, and then also open up anybody from the floor, as long as we can have some dialogue, and that is some issues that everybody gets a chance to talk about those things. The first one I have is, and I'm not looked at all of them, so hopefully they're in some sort of order. On Senate Bill 2, what types of photo ID will allow a person to vote? For instance, will a student be able to use their school ID?
Sure, yes. Can you all hear me? Any photo ID that's valid, it's got to be printed by the state of Kentucky or the U.S. government. So driver's license, student ID, the ID does not even need to be a valid ID. For instance, if grandma was 90 and she hadn't driven for 15 years and her driver's license is not valid, she can still use that license as identification at the polls. Additionally, if you show up at the polls without a photo ID, you just have to assign an affirmation and check a reasonable impediment why you don't have a photo ID, and then show another form of ID that is currently accepted now, so security card, credit card, and then you'll be able to vote in the normal manner. There also is an exception for if you show up without any sort of ID whatsoever, you'll still be able to vote a provisional ballot as well. So we're not turning away anybody at the ballot box. We're just trying to make sure everybody is who they say they are, and we're doing away with the personal recognition that we have at the polls now. The data showed that last election, 98% of voters used their driver's license, 1.6% used another alternate form of ID, and then 0.4% was personal recognition. So we're just trying to get rid of that, close that loop that's there, the hole in the loop that's there, because there's about 300,000 folks on the voter rolls that should not be on the voter rolls that have either passed away or moved out of Kentucky, and those voter rolls have not been cleaned up. With that amount of voters that are on the voting roll, we just believe that there's the opportunity that there could be voter fraud. If we close that loophole, when we see the elections and we see close elections, we're going to have confidence that the election is what it is, and who said won.
Thanks. Senator, anybody else want comments? Okay, all righty. The next question, something that is a great question, actually, and people are always been kind of concerned anyway, not concerned, but thinking about it. Do you believe that the legislators and governor being controlled by opposite parties has made you think and act in a more bipartisan manner? And similarly, have you worked bipartisanly this session? I'm sure the answer is yes, but I would like to some comments or anybody?
I mean, I will say I have not been contacted by the governor, not once, since we even before. So the only time that I have been in his presence is the swearing in of Daniel Cameron as Attorney General. So as far as him reaching out, I haven't heard anything from him. As far as me doing my job as a state legislator, I have my personal opinions of who's in, the governor's mansion, but as far as me doing my job, it doesn't affect me doing my job anyway. So, I mean, that's the main thing.
Anybody else want to comment? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's any certainly no benefit of having, you know, a governor of one party and legislature another party and somehow say that that's going to, I guess it does force you to do some things bipartisan if you get things done, but I don't think, you know, I think we need to look at what's best for Kentucky and what's the right thing to do, and it really shouldn't matter who is in the control of the legislature, who's at control of the governor's mansion. It shouldn't matter.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I normally talk to, I get to the legislative floor about 10 to 15 minutes before we start. So I get a chance to talk to other people, other members of the Republican Party while I'm on the floor. I talked to Nemus, who led, I'm sorry, he's a Republican, who led House Bill 136 on marijuana, medical marijuana, and talked to him about his strategy, things of that nature. I talked to the governor on Thursday. I talked to him about 15 minutes, went to his office. I had something I wanted to discuss with him. After the session was over, I tracked him to his office and talked to him for 15 minutes. He was open. He just told me, hey, I had to wait for a few minutes to do it, but I got in and talked to him. Hope that answers your question.
Sure did. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes.
I'll even go further than that. Even going back the past 4 years, we did more overrides and vetoes of that being the same party than had been previous. So as far as us doing our job, I mean, as far as our the legislation that we pass and we put on the governor's desk to sign, you know, if we feel that strongly about it, we will override a veto. So that could, I mean, it could be he signs everything we send him that we've agreed on both House and Senate side. And if, you know, if he vetoes anything, there's a possibility we would override that veto.
And I would say that as a grad executive director of the programs we ran, we have not seen any changes to the point that everybody wants to help and do something that is the best for the communities and the constituents. So, you know, that's, but it's people's mind, because it's something that is different in the history that we have. The next one that I have is that the Senate Bill 1 that prohibits adopting and enforcing any sanctuary policy relating to the immigration. The question is, why not pass a KRS prohibiting sanctuary cities and counties for anything? This was any discussion. Anybody want to pick up on that?
Robbie and I'll kind of both take this. You know, basically what we were asking the local and state law enforcement to do is just abide by the federal law and work with our federal law enforcement. And so this particular issue was one that we all agreed upon. And so that's the reason this bill was there with it is. And Robbie, if you want to add anything to it, I mean, it's pretty simple.
Okay, all righty, thanks. Good. The next one, there's, I guess there are 3 question marks. It says Highway 54, Highway 54, Highway 54.
Yes.
2 yeses?
It will be in the road plan when it leaves the house.
Okay,
And
well,
it will
good.
be in the road plan in the Senate.
Excellent. This person is, I would like to take 1 minute to thank legislators for the support of the House Bill 36. Chuck? Use the microphone there if you don't mind.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Works better when you turn it on.
It's on.
My name is Chuck Kucera. I'm the adjutant officer of VFW Post 696 here in Owensboro. I am also on the JEC Joint Executive Council of Veterans Organizations Legislative Committee. I just want to take a moment here to thank those of you who have signed on as co-sponsors. We currently have 17 co-sponsors for that bill. Among them here are Representative Glenn, Scott Lewis, and I hereby invite Representative Gooch to become a co-sponsor also. House Bill 36 is sometimes misunderstood. What it says, it is not a carte blanche tax exemption for veterans posts. It is an opportunity for veterans who own property and are paying exorbitant property taxes to apply for an exemption if they can prove to their PVA that they donate 50% or more of their net revenue. In other words, if you make $100,000 total income a year, it costs you $80,000 to run your post. Your net revenue is 20,000. If you give 10,000 plus to the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, police and all, you may apply for an exemption. This is critically important to the 152 posts throughout the state who own property and are paying taxes, representing the 295,000 veterans in the state of Kentucky. It is currently, it passed House Veterans Affairs and Military Committee unanimously. It is currently in the A&R Committee, the money guys, the bean counters, and right now it's sort of, from what I hear, buried at the bottom of the budget pile. It is vitally important that we get this through A&R and to the House for a vote. I've communicated with Senator Castleton on this. Once it gets to the Senate level, I know he will be a supporter. Representative Miles has been supportive all along. She is not on the A&R committee, but once it's out of A&R, Suzanne, we hope you pull that team through. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. I have a question that we have heard that the federal government plans to put more money into the programs under the Older Americans Act, which is true. The question is, we would like to ask the state not to lower their funding so that additional federal funds can be used to add seniors to meals and other programs. Do you think this can happen? And this is something really important for many people in the audience, along with the, many of the senior centers we do too. So anybody want to comment on that?
The only thing I'll say, and this is kind of a blanket statement for most things, anything that comes from the federal government that we have an opportunity to match to financially secure that funding, I think as a whole we try to work toward that. So I do think that that's keeping in mind each and every time. But the flip side of that, we still have to come up with the money to match that money. So I think as a whole, though, we really do try to focus in on the opportunities. If federal money can be matched, we do our very best to do that.
Yeah, some of you may not be aware, we run short of money for feeding the elderly. My mother was on the phone with, my mother's 90 years old. She was on the phone with me 2 weeks ago, chewing me out about not having enough money to feed the elderly. I said, Ma, are you short of money? She says, no. I said, didn't Dad give you enough money? She said, yeah. She said, but it's not fair for all the senior citizens. They all should be eating. And I'm just trying to tell you in another way that I support it and to make sure that we increase our funding in that area.
Thank you. I think it's true. We have a long list of waiting list on every counties, on every program that affects the seniors. So I think this is important for all of us to make sure that there is enough. And I agree with Representative Miles, not only in this Older Americans Act, on every program that we receive funding from the federal government, state always does make sure that we get maximum benefits of the federal funds and find some matching funds and everything else. Hopefully they will continue doing that as well. I'd like to open up. Anybody else in the audience? Yes.
Thank you. And this is not going to be any surprises for anyone, but I just want to mention that more than 230 Kentucky cities have the option to help build their community with a restaurant tax. There's about 29 cities, more than 230 have that opportunity. There's about 29 cities that do not have that opportunity. And that funding has to be used for recreation, capital expenditures to build infrastructure for the community or economic development. And I would, when that bill comes across, I would like to request or ask, beg for the senators and representatives to co-sponsor that bill and try to make it an even playing field across the whole state and not leave 30 cities or so out in the cold. The second thing I want to mention, and as everyone here knows, everybody in the General Assembly knows, cities and counties have funded their pension arc every month, every year since the pension was established. And cities and counties has built about a 60% funding mechanism. I think investments and management has been very questionable, because how could those ARCs been established and paid and you're only at 60%? It has to do with investments and management. And let local communities manage their own pension destiny. You know, we put the money in, we pay the 100% of the ARC. Now we're paying an additional 12% per year stacked for 7 years. That in the case of Henderson is going to amount to right at $7 million of new funding. I think that the pension board has looked at KERS funded at about 12% and tried to put cities and counties and school system employees that are not teachers on the same catch-up plan. And we don't need the same catch-up plan as the 13%, 12% funded KERS. We need to manage our own funds. We got a $20-something thousand city CRS was charged $20-something thousand for administration fee last year. And the fund made less than 7%. You know what your fund made if you're invested. There's something wrong with the management of the pension system, and cities and counties and school employees, not teachers, would like to be able to manage their own system under some circumstances.
Thank you, Mayor. Anybody would like to?
Journal ran a article, probably 3 or 4 months ago. They said in the article that if we did nothing, that the retirement fund will be balanced in about 22 years. The program we're doing now will take 28. But if we did nothing, it will take 22 years. How do we get into this hole? It took us 20 years to get into this hole. People ask for things that we can't afford. Now, a lot of legislators, roads, bridges, buildings, they try to meet those core needs. And what they do is they sweep funds from a lot of different accounts. I don't know what's happening, but that's normally what happens. You're sweeping money all the time. Then you end up in a hole. We didn't get in this hole overnight. Everybody wants us to get out of this hole in 5 years. Cannot be done. You have to stay focused. And you have to make sure you're investing money every year and stop this stuff using hedge funds. That's a mistake. I'm sorry, that was a point. That's a mistake. Nobody my finger off. That's a mistake. You can't use hedge funds because hedge funds, the only person making money with hedge funds are the hedge fund guys in New York City. You take your time and you slowly grow your accounts over time. You can do this stuff and we can be balanced in 20 years. You do a little bit every year. We can't do it in 5, which is what the public wants. It took us 20 years to get in this hole. It's going to take us 20 years to get out. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And just a couple statements. I agree with you, Mayor. The mayor believes the Courier Journal, every article that they print. I don't. Secondly, I think what the mayor was asking was just to have the ability to dig ourselves out of the hole. That we couldn't do any worse than what has been done in the past. But what I want to talk to you about would be that the General Assembly, the legislative branch, and the executive branch work together to dig us out of the hole that we have regarding road funding, gas tax, and those kinds of things. I stood before the judge executives convention 3 weeks ago and asked that don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. For, I guess, 10 or 11 years since I've been judge executive of Davis County, I continue to hear comprehensive tax reform. We can't do anything unless we do comprehensive tax reform. I even heard the pension system needed to be included in comprehensive tax reform. Well, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I know 2 years ago, we increased some taxes on services because we needed the money. I saw several bills this year put in to allow sports betting. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. The refusal to work on raising gas taxes, which all the cities and the counties, as a matter of fact, the Kentucky League of Cities and the Kentucky Association of Counties have come together and agreed together on how that money should be spent, the excess money.
we can talk all day long about what we should do regarding electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, but you might be talking about 5,000 vehicles. At $100 a vehicle, you might be talking about $500,000. 10 cents is $300 million. 20 cents is $600 million that we sorely need, the state sorely needs. Cities and counties sorely need the money because that part of the infrastructure is crumbling. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Every year that we wait to deal with electric and hybrid vehicles, we're losing $300 to $600 million. And as somebody said from the good state of Illinois, after a while, that's a considerable amount of money, isn't it? $1 million here, $1 million there, and pretty soon you're talking about a lot of money. I just ask that, and I know our local delegation understands the importance for our community, but work in a bipartisan way and see if we can't move forward and get some money in that road pot. It will benefit everyone in our Commonwealth.
Thank you, Judge Balsay. Any comments on this side?
My comments probably won't be as long as the judges were, but Judge, I can't see over the podium here, but so anyways, what he said, infrastructure is something rich or poor, Democrat, Republican, we all use. Take our kids to school, we go to work, we go to church, we do all the things we use for our infrastructure, and there's no doubt that our infrastructure is crumbling, our bridges. And, if you look at the state of Kentucky as a whole, we're a lot wider than we are tall. You can make it through the state of Kentucky. If you're going from the northeast to the south, you're coming through Kentucky. With the 9 interstates that we have here, we have more interstates in the state of Kentucky than any other state in the union. And so I think it's time that we even look at even adding more creative ways that we can let these people that are using our roads, that are not buying a gallon of gas in the Commonwealth to help pay for the infrastructure they have to make it through. And so I think there are some great discussions taking place on this. And I just wanted to say something here real quick. So my daughter has a basketball game, and I'm going to slip out the back door here because I've been gone all week long, and I want to go see her be able to make some shots. And so family to me is the most important thing. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, Senator. Alrighty. Even though this is legislative breakfast, and I'm not trying to put Alex on the spot because of the discussion about the budget and everything else, but we are proud to have, I think I would say that the first time I've seen somebody from the Grad region who is a governor's field rep, Alex Cottle from Henderson County. So right there, welcome. So not just with this, but any issue, anything that you have, any concerns, the questions, the comments about in the governor's office or the folks in Frankfurt, Alex, would be great to contact, including the Grad. But I think it'd be great that you are here. We got some friends. Yes.
Thank you. I've met some of you already before. My name is Ben Nunley. I have a condition called Meniere's disease. It causes vertigo and nausea. And I have a unique position here in the state of Kentucky. I have the legal right to use medical cannabis to treat my disease. If you'd like the legal documents, I'm sad that Senator Cashman had to just leave, but he has a copy of my legal documents. And Senator Netnez has a copy of my legal documents. Cannabis is not a gateway drug. It's an exit medicine. I'm going to say that again. Cannabis is not a gateway drug. It's an exit medicine. So I think it will work great with House Bill 1 and perhaps Senator Castle's bill for the substance abuse, because most of those studies for substance abuse is from alcohol, pills like opioids, Xanax, Klonopin, Valium, whatever you want to name. And then, meth. But, there are some states where there is cannabis involved in some small cases, but generally not. 2 judges here locally agreed with me, Judges Julie Gordon and Judges Joe Castlin. He agreed with me as well that I could raise my kids without fear of losing them and treat with medical cannabis. But more studies needed to be done. There's always more studies. Anyway, so it went to Frankfurt, our Kentucky, our state capital, the Kentucky State Court of Appeals. A 3-judge panel had to rule in my favor. Again, they agreed with me. They were Judges Dixon, Lambert, and Smallwood. They agree that cannabis was the best way to treat my condition. So what I'm getting at is, in this particular situation, can't we all, and the House voted in favor of the 2-1 already, so that's great. Let's just keep this thing going. Can we all get along, since the Kentucky legal system has already agreed that I can benefit from cannabis? I have no doubt that we can all agree that we can help thousands and thousands and thousands of Kentuckians like myself that can benefit from medical cannabis and get safe access. There's only one senator left. I mean, if you care, it looks like you might be able to get swayed on this when you say you got some more studies you need to do. I'd love to be able to get you on board with this. Thank you.
We did pass it in the House, and I want people to go out there and look at that bill and read it to its entirety so that they understand. This is a very, very narrow scope of what we voted on out of the House, and it came a long way. One of the items, the advertising side of it, we added an amendment that you can't advertise it. I'll give the perfect example was as soon as they legalized the medical marijuana in Las Vegas. I was out there shortly after that. Every single ad on TV and billboard I saw was what process you go through as far as what the right things are to say to acquire this medicine. So we did pass it out of the House. I did vote for it in the House. I'm very pleased with the narrow scope we are. As far as a whole, though, I am concerned that we really should, and I hope that someday we do, from the FDA and from the federal level, have it classified along with other substances that may be, if this is a situation where it would impair people's ability to operate equipment and things like that. We just need to make sure we're walking a very tight rope on this right now. So I have received some emails from people very excited that, oh, I'm on their side. Well, I'm on the side of people that are sick to get help. That is the side that I'm on right now. As far as a free-for-all, I am not for the free-for-all. And I do think that we are walking a very tight rope and we need to be very cautious. I know that there's going to be a bill filed this next week, I think it is, to ask the University of Kentucky to actually have a cannabis research facility so that we can, if it's going to move forward at the federal level, that Kentucky can be on the forefront of exactly how we can make it the best opportunity for us to get people off opioids, get people off the things that have been so addictive and get them in a safer, healthier place. So I just, I know that he hasn't seen the final version. So in his defense right now, he needs to have the opportunity to have that time because we did change it a lot. I think the end result were maybe 21 versions of this bill before we actually voted on it this past week. So it has really been through the meat grinder, so to speak, and in a good way, in my opinion. But I do think you need to kind of keep in mind, in their defense right now to ask for something that they haven't even had the opportunity to do their homework. I wouldn't want to put that on him.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I just wanted to go back into the cannabis a little bit. That's we're dancing around on eggshells with this. It's not like the information isn't there. There's plenty of studies already been done in Israel and throughout the world on this plant. It's a plant that saves lives. You can look up Josh Daly on YouTube, and there's an example there of it's a TED Talk about it. But we're talking about financial problems that this state has. And the one thing this state does have is great agricultural ground. And it also has this, it provides medicine, energy, fuel, paper, rope, maps, bricks, oil, paint, and furniture. There are 50,000 commercial uses is a low estimate of it. And when we're struggling with finances and we're in Kentucky, I don't understand it because everywhere in the world knows that Kentucky is where it grows the best. It grows outdoor here better than anywhere else in the world. And people fear that it's going to be caught up with just marijuana. Well, if you're in Western Kentucky and you grow hemp, your neighbor to the east of you is growing hemp too. He's not growing cannabis because it'll pollinate it. And we can fix so many of our problems that we're facing and help so many people. There have already been over 30 families that have had to
go to different places to help their children out because there's Dravet syndrome. It actually helps this epilepsy. It stops seizures. The one girl, Charlotte Figgy, was having 300 grand mal seizures a week. And her first week on cannabis, she had 2. And that TED Talk with Josh Stanley on YouTube, you can see this video and watch this young child. She went from being in a wheelchair to now she's functioning at the same level. And the reason they caught all this is because she has a twin sister. They saw her getting behind early, and that was the only solution that they had. But it's saved countless of lives. It's helped many people. And the wonderful thing about it is nobody's ever died from overdose on it. It's not a drug that kills you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments, and I'm sure they will keep that in mind as well. Yes, sir.
I have a question for Senator Miles or Senator Mills. How can you talk bad about medical marijuana? Prohibition is dead. Right in your backyard, right across the Ohio River, our medical marijuana bill has been strict. It's the most strict in the nation. And y'all are still talking. When all I got to do is just drive right down the road, go across the bridge, the Ohio River. As a free-born American, I can go in there and purchase smokable marijuana, not breaking the law. But here in Kentucky, y'all, I've been come here for years now, and the same old propaganda, more studies, more this, more that. How long why is Kentucky always last? We're always last. We're begging, sick people are begging and pleading for help, and y'all talk for years now. Just drive across the bridge, Harrisburg, Illinois, the Thrive store. Just go sit in the parking lot. People come and go, old people, young people. There's no crime. There's no argument. Alcohol is the baddest drug on the market, and y'all promote it daily. But yet you fight against sick people wanting safe access to medical marijuana. It doesn't make sense. I appreciate an answer, Mr. Mills.
What was your question again?
How can you be against medical marijuana when legal marijuana is right in your back door?
Right in my bag, in Illinois.
Yeah.
That's legal in the state. It's not federally legal, correct?
It's legal, smokable marijuana.
So how can I be against that?
How can you be against the citizens having safe access to a medicine when it's legal right across the bridge? That makes no sense. No sense whatsoever.
Well,
are we not all Americans? 33 states have it right now. The majority is supposed to rule in this country, isn't it? You know, if you were listening last week when they voted on it, the legislator said 90% of their constituents want this.
Right.
How can you keep denying the people's right?
I personally cannot deny the right, but I am one vote. I am one vote. So that's the answer. When the Senate votes, as the Senate decides to take this up, that will be the answer for Kentucky.
So you're not going to say whether you're for it or against it?
I will tell you, my biggest concern about us voting on that bill was you all have put me in a position, that bill put me in a position to make medical decisions. I'm not a physician, I'm not a chemist, I'm not a biologist. And as far as creating a medication that should be, if you go to your pharmacist, this will not be a prescription that you can go to a pharmacist. A pharmacist cannot legally dispense this drug to you.
Well,
But all the other
that's my
drugs
point,
that have
man.
been authorized by the FDA have gone through the studies and everything else. So that is a really big concern for me of what we're doing right now with this.
We've been hearing that for years now, while other states all around us have it.
Then why have they not authorized it at the federal level? Why has FDA not authorized it?
I can't answer the federal government. I live in Kentucky. I don't live in Washington.
I think they will consider all the comments and everything else, and I agree with that. They got to look at everything. It's a one vote. I mean, and again, Senate hasn't still seen the final bill and everything else to even make any comments or at least some decision on that. Yes.
I got a question.
Use the microphone, please.
Okay. Good morning, and I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. My name's Andy Gamblin, and I'm very, very concerned about a thing I heard from our governor that he wants to support Planned Parenthood. He won because our education is in trouble, but yet he's going to use fund to support Planned Parenthood. I don't want my tax dollars to be supporting Planned Parenthood. I want to read this, and I want y'all to hear this. Since 1973, 60 million babies have been killed in the U.S. In California, the population is 40 million. In New York, the population is 20 million. That's half of the population right there. If those babies was living today, just think how much more people would be working and paying Social Security. Which in Washington, our Social Security, the leaders has abused the Social Security. They took it and used it for other things. We all know that. Now, around the world, we've killed 48 million. I don't want my tax dollars to go and be in support for Planned Parenthood. And I'm asking the Democrats, they need to get off the duff and tell our governor no to this. I know the Republicans would say no, but Mr. Glenn, I'm asking you, please tell the governor, I don't want my tax dollars to go fund Planned Parenthood.
You have a phone?
And yes, and I've called Dorsey Ridley. I have.
Call Dorsey Ridley.
Well, I know
the governor.
I did call the governor's office.
Okay.
And of course, you cannot talk to the governor. You probably can because you say representative. But me, I cannot get through to the governor. I had to go through one of his secretarial aides. So I did talk to Dorsey Ridley, and Dorsey said he would let the governor know. So I've got my message across. But we all need to be doing that.
Well, thank you so much.
One more thing too,
okay,
please.
sure.
I am very, very concerned about our nation right now. And I know other states is push for recreation marijuana, and how they're using it is because they say, oh, well, we're going to take the money and pay for education, which they've never done. Now, we introduced Wallace Wilkinson, pushed for the lottery, said, well, I want to help education, roads, and the veterans. Well, you know what? Our roads in Kentucky is not very good right now. Our veterans, I think they got maybe one time a raise while Wallace was governor. Education, I think it goes to higher education. The lower education, and I'm a bus monitor, I don't see where the money's going to the lower education. I'd like to know where the lottery money is going to. We need to redo our tax code. We need to cut taxes across the board and look for high-paying jobs. If we would cut taxes, because it will work. Andrew Mullins used to be chief of staff for president a long time ago, and the economy was bad like it is now. And Andrew Mullins said, cut taxes, and they cut taxes, and the United States started to function again. We can do the same thing. We need to cut taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think he's first, and I'll have Chief.
This question is for Mr. Mills and for Caston. Unfortunately, he's already left. But House Bill 171 was an act relating to the public pension for the quasis that are not able to exit nor not able to stay into the system under the upcoming changes. It's now passed, I think, unanimously in the House, 100% bipartisan, I believe. But it only had like one or two dissenters, if anything. Can you state whether or not that's going to pass in the Senate or what your thoughts are? Because without it, the rape crisis centers and the domestic violence shelters will hand over the keys, and y'all cannot afford to run those shelters for a tenth of what it's going to cost you.
I don't know if we've received it yet in the Senate yet. Once again, it's a House bill, so.
Yeah.
It has passed the House, but as far as there's more work that's being done on that, but as far as the livelihood of the rape crisis centers and things like that, I do think that that's going to go forward. And as far as I don't know, even though that they've received it, as far as the people that are working on that with additional adjustments, the quasi-governments is involved in a lot of that conversation, the health departments. There were two companion bills, 171, and there was another one by Representative Moser. So they may have it physically in print in their possession, but as far as the work that continues to be done on that bill, I know that there's working groups that are working on that. So there's no doubt in my mind that we will come up with something before the end of this session to prevent the damage to the quasis and the rape crisis centers.
I'd say there's substantial buzz and talk about that being incorporated into the budget. So I think it's going to be like it's going to be like the veterans bill. Several things get rolled into the budget. The bill may not completely pass till the very end of the bill, but I think we're very cognizant that those services are needed and that we've got to do something to keep their doors open.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the treasurer of Oasis, and what we can do with our dollar can stretch a lot farther than what the state could do with our dollar, just because what we can pay people as a philanthropy is a lot different than what you all could pay them as a state employee. And so we're just really interested in making sure that we can stay in the system or exit the system, but one way or the other, we have to be able to do so. And funding gets really, really tight, as you know.
Your folks were in my office last week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
They were in both of our offices, and we appreciate
Thank you.
them
Thank you so
coming.
much. I think it's a great concern that we all have. Last question, because these guys are very busy. They probably have another 3-4 meetings planned this weekend as well. So anybody have one last question before we adjourn? Yes.
Hello, I'm Joey Benefit. I'm the commander of VFW 696.
Right.
And Congressman Glenn, I thank you for sponsoring House Bill 36. I thank all of you for what you're doing for House Bill 36. Congressman Glenn, I'm going to put you on the spot. It's in the A&R. As soon as this budget gets passed, we'd really, really appreciate it if you do everything you can to get this shuffled up. With that,
Okay. Thank you again.
Basically, I really just want to thank everybody for coming today, and I really appreciate you guys. You're only home for a very few days, a couple days, and you take this time to come visit with us. I really do appreciate that a lot, all of you, and I appreciate y'all for coming. And please fill out your surveys and turn them in or leave them on your table. But let's get that done. Appreciate you coming.